All right, we're going to do a small coding along of exercise 2 of session 2, the time wasted app. Now, what does that exactly contain? Now, we're going to grab data from a database using the API of OMDB, the Open Movie Database, which I will show you in a second. We're going to grab data based on a search result that we're going to input in our website, and we're going to take the data that the API gives us back and we're going to show it on screen. That's the basic gist of what we are going to do for this exercise. I am going to work up until I think exercise 3. After exercise 3, you're going to need to add the counter yourself and the eventual live updating on keystroke. So those things are for yourself, but I'm going to give you the basics so you can get started and get your data from that API and get it on your web page. Let's get to it. So now that we see here, I have some basics already. Namely, I have the find your movie. It prints out my search result, which is what I want. So let's go over, let's take a quick look on what I already have here on my page. So for my HTML, it's the same HTML that I have provided in the canvas. Now, the only thing that I added was some breaks here and there to make it a bit more readable on the page. And of course, my own script. That's it. Now, the script, of course, we have the window on load. There is some extra stuff here, which I will come to in a second. Now, with my window on load, of course, I'm going to only execute the code when my page is loaded. Then I will show the loaded console log and I will get my config. Now, why would I need a config? Now, I'm not going to show you my API key, but of course, everybody got an API key to get access to the OMDB API. If you have not, you go to the OMDB webpage and then in here, you will find the API key section. Now, once you have that API key, as I have explained earlier, that will get you the access to the OMDB API. It's a simple key that you have to add for every request you make to the API. So what did I do? I made a JSON file. Of course, this is a dummy, as you might see, that has, it's just an object. It's a JSON file, of course, so we need the double quotes here. And I have the API in there, which is my key, and the base URL. Now, the base URL is actually just this. So I can copy that in here, which means every call that I make is going to start from this URL. This is to prevent any, like, how should I say it? This is to prevent to typing out the URL each time you make a request, which is not something you want. You want to make it as flexible as possible. If this changes tomorrow, if you have 3 places in your code where you use that URL, you have to change it on those 3 places. Now you only have 1 place to look for. Now, the base URL, you can take you can take all the same things. I will provide a dummy file also with the solution found on Canvas in the resources. And in the script, I will use a function getConfig. Now, we've done some fetches, we've done some async and await, as you might have noticed. So, very basic, I will get the JSON file, I will convert it to JSON, semicolon, and I will just add it to the config. Now, the config will be an object with 2 properties, API key and base URL. And we're going to see later in the form how we're going to use that to make our GET requests on the fly. Good. So I've already prepared a function, getData, where we are going to do our fetch request. Note the async, because I'm going to use the await feature again to make more readable code. And we're going to make a search parameter, so it's clear. And of course, I have made 2 event listeners, mainly the search form. So my form has the ID of search form. So I'm going to, of course, wait for the submit and then use this function to execute when the form is submitted. And I'm going to hide the card for now. So you're not seeing the card. What is there if I do this, there's like a card title in here, which is of course very ugly with basic text. We're gonna be changing that text during our exercise. So again, now as I said, I have set up the basics. If I search something, Avengers, and I do search, I have the value because it's printed out here. So I have the value. So what do we need to do? Now we need to make a call to the OMDB API. Now there is some documentation. So we have posters, we have the data request itself. Now we're going to make an example. So for example, if I search for Avengers, search, no response. Very weird. Let me check. Maybe from what time is this? 2015? I don't know. Apparently. Oh, Age of Ultron. Good enough. So apparently it was too vague to have a really any results. So it's searching on T here. So as you can see, it creates the URL with T, and I think that is based on title if I'm going to. So you have search and you have by ID or title. Now I'm going to do the search because if I do that, only the S is required. That's the parameter, and I will probably get more than one movie back. So we're going to try that out. I'm going to call the function get data with that value. Search for the movie, get data, and we're going to pass in value. Now, we will return a value, of course. Results. We're going to make some beautifully structured code, and we're going to have another function later, which is to do the DOM manipulation. So you actually have 3 different functions. So in get data, well, I've already made some good looking code here, so I'm just going to reuse that because that's basically a fetch what we need to do. Now, of course, what's the difference here? The URL is going to be the base URL plus the parameter S with my search parameter and the API key. So let's make that URL. And let's use template literals for it. So we're going to start with the base URL, which we have in config.base URL. Then the base URL ends with a question mark. So if I look at this here, it ends in a question mark. So immediately afterwards, I'm going to be using the S. So we have on top, so search parameter, meter, of course. And then after the search parameter, I'm going to be adding the API key. Now, the API key I will probably be using in here. Let me check. So the API key should be something that comes at the end always, and I think it ampersand API key. Let me check in the documentation. API key and then your key. So I'm going to, you can also put it in the base URL, but I like to make them different because if your key changes, then you don't have to change the whole base URL. API key, different preferences. And this way you learn how to work with external objects as well. Some key. All right. As you can see, we're going to add that as well at the end. So API key config.api key. And now we have at least a URL. The URL will be outputted. Of course, you can do it in a console log to test it out. Before you do this, you can always, like, if you're not sure that this is working and nothing is coming back, make a string. Let URL. Do it like this. For some people, it may be more easy to wrap your head around, and then do this. So you're creating the URL into a variable. Console log that URL for yourself, so you know what it looks like, and if you can copy paste from the console log into your browser and you get a result, that means the URL is correct. If it's not correct, then you need to work on this. Okay, now we're gonna see if it works, of course. I'm gonna have a small break here to adjust my API key, because my API key is not formatted like that. Hold on a second. All right, we're back. My key has been changed. So now we can see if we can get back data. Now, the easiest way, of course, is to console log the data. So let's get to it. Okay, response true. Search 10. Total results 107. And I will get the 10 first back. So perfect. That's exactly what we need. Now, of course, this is to prevent, we're going to use the S parameter. This is to prevent when we have no results when searching for the T. So if we use T, the title, and we don't get a result back, then our website will not work. So now we're always using the S, so we always get at least some results back, even if it doesn't match our thing perfectly. And also afterwards you can expand, because these 10 results of course will change if you're going to the last part of this exercise, which is searching each keystroke. So on A you're going to do a search, on V you're going to do a search, and each time you will be able to print those 10 on your screen so you can choose from them. So it's basically like a Google autocomplete. Okay, now we're going to return that first object, the data object. We're going to return the first result because that most closely resembles the search parameter that we entered. So if I return data dot, I think it was search, we can check the console log again, the first object, and see what we get back. Console log results. Save. Let's see what it does. So Avengers search. Data.search is not defined. Of course, I think I'm just wrong here. So again, how do we check this? Something was wrong because search is not defined. That means that I made a mistake in the parameter. I'm going to check what that parameter is, and then I'm going to adjust my code accordingly. So search. So what is in here? It's search with a capital S. Okay. Search. All right. And get data into results. And line 26 is an asynchronous function. So we are going to await that as well. Let's change that because, of course, we are calling an asynchronous function, so that returns a promise. Of course, I need to change this and wait until the data is done. Until the result is done, I'm sorry. Console log results. And that should be it. Test again. Et voila, now we're here. So again, small recap. I am getting the data using the value. It's an asynchronous function, so it's going to return a promise. So I have to wait until the promise is resolved. I do this with a consumer method. Then, when the promise is resolved, so when I return something, then the result will be filled up with what I return, and I can console log it or actually do something with it. Now, in the getData function, of course, we built our URL. As you can see, it works. We fetch it, the data. We get back a response. We convert it to JSON. We wait for it. And we return the first element of that list. Now, we need to take a look. The last part we need to do right now is add that data to the DOM. We need to fill up our card. So, show movie on card. And what I'm going to add the result. That's another function. going to minimize a couple of things. That's just a regular function. So show movie on card, movie. And now we're gonna do the DOM manipulation. So look at how I separate my code. What I mean by that is that I have a function to handle my submit from my form. I have a function to get data from an API, and I have a function to like adjust my DOM, my document object model. So if I do something on the screen, I can do it in here. This has a specific need. So in case that something goes wrong, eventually you're going to look at the specific functions and you only need to change those. Also for later, say that you need to get the data from a different API, let's say the movie database, which is another very good API, you can just here change that URL here. And all the rest should work. Of course, the results that you're going to get back will have different objects and stuff like that, but the rest will still work. Now, show movie on card. I need to see what that object consists of. Now, I'm not going to console log. We have documentation. Let's use the documentation. Let's see here. What do we get back? I think one, as you can see, the title, the year. What else do we have? The runtime, title, year, runtime. And I think there's like a description somewhere. Plot. Title, year, description, plot. Okay, I'm going to show my card for a second so that I'm going to show it here. That means when I am done adding the data, I need to show the card. I'm going to check on what I can do. So again, this is your idea. So maybe release and runtime here, the description here, and the title here. Okay. So I need to get a look at my HTML. Let me check. This is the card title. I'm going to add an ID to make it easier to work with. So card title. Or you know what? Let's make it movie title. That is easier to remember. And it's something that we added. The movie. Title. Plot. And let's say release date. Let's keep it simple. You can add as much as you want. So title, plot, and release date. I can leave all those things. Oh, wait a minute. This is, as you can see, I gave this a name, but it's the small because it's Bootstrap. You know what? I'm going to make. I'm going to change this. I'm going to add the ID to make it easier. Of course, if you're not using Bootstrap, you don't have this issue. But of course, I want to have that muted, like this smaller font for that release date. It's much easier to look at. Okay, now leave this open. Again, this is how you should be working. Of course, we know that this works. So I'm going to disable it for now so that every change that I make, I can see immediately on the card. So, DOM manipulation. We know we get a movie object. We know what's in it. We know it's a title, a plot, and a release. Released is the property. And as you can notice, everything has a capital letter. I do not like that personally, but still. Let's go. Documents.get element by ID. And then, of course, movie title. Dot inner text. What are we going to change? It's a property, so we're going to change movie dot title. Voila. Normally plot released. Again, I keep doubting. So should just take the documentation. So movie title, movie plot, movie release date. Save. Okay. Let's see if nothing works. Okay, perfect. Let's see what is going wrong. Has my data been crashing? Let me check. Oh, of course, I need to make a search first. So again, think twice before you think your code is wrong. Of course, this code will only trigger after we search for something. Avengers. Let's see if it works. Undefined, undefined. So that means something is wrong here. We get the title, so we know that the object is correct, but the plot and the released is not correct. Let's see. Plot, I thought it was okay. It's capital P. And released. Maybe there's something wrong. Let's see. Maybe the search gives me something back differently than the title. Remember, this is the title API and not a search. So, console log, movie. And let's take a look. Avengers. What is in here? Ah, not everything is in here. Okay, that's because we are looking by search. Okay. Okay. Let's see. If I do... Now, we're not going to change this. Let's see if I change this S to a T. How does my application fare? Of course, the data search is undefined. I'm now trying to make sure that we can basically just do a simple search. Aha, we got it. Okay, so again, T, as you noticed, this is the demo that they gave. I don't know why I didn't get a result in the first time here. If I do search, oh, now I have. Okay. So again, testing out is important. Make sure you experiment with this. And of course, the buildup of this application at the moment makes it easy to just change one letter in the URL and I have results. That was all the things that I need. So I'm going to stick with T. I'm probably going to use S if we make the last exercise. So if you're going to get lists of things, because the T only gives one movie back at a time. That's not what we want for the last part of this exercise. So this should do for now. I'm going to clean the bit up and then go over it one last time. I'm going to finish it now. I'm going to hide the card in the beginning and I'm going to show the card. Oh, we still need to add one more thing, which is, let me check. It's the image, of course. Let me think. Where do we get the image? The image is in here. I saw a URL somewhere. Here, poster. JPEG. So if I copy that URL, I get the poster. That's exactly what I want. Now, do I have an image tag in my index? I think so. Here, the source is to be determined, of course. I'm gonna see if I can add that poster to that source, so which is also in my DOM manipulation. I do not have an ID for that. ID, poster, movie poster. Consistent naming conventions helps you from making too much mistakes, believe me. Don't get element by ID. Movie poster dot source. I think it's an attribute. Add attribute. Set attributes. Needed to. Set the value of an element's first attribute whose qualified name is qualified name to value. Okay, so I assume that this is source, and I assume that the second part is the value. So that's movie.poster. Now let's see if that works. Again, Avengers. Bam, and we have our card. So, quick recap. In the beginning, there was nothing. In the beginning, we have a small application here. I get my config, which is just a function. So I'm gonna go over it. Window on load. I declare 3 functions. They are not important yet until I come to this point. I hide my card and I add a function that will be executed on submit. Now, if we go into that submit, prevent default, of course, from preventing my page to refresh, and I will get the value from my input field, which is this one. I will then get the data, which will throw back a promise, hence why we use the then consumer method. In the get data, we build our URL. If we're not sure about the URL, do a console log. We do the call, we wait until it's back, we get the response, we convert it to JSON, we have our data, and we return our data. Actually, this can be a bit more quicker if we just do this. Voila. Again, we return the data, and then if we get the result, we show the movie on the card. Now, what is in the card? Or in that function, the basic DOM manipulation. You add those 4 things and you show the card. Now, of course, once we have this, we can do Avengers, we can do Parasite, we can do the best Marvel movie of all, Green Lantern, of course. Oh, which is undefined. So there is some work to do. Maybe I showed you this for a reason. There is some work to do if you do not get results back. Maybe this, Hulk, of course, that will work. So now you have a very decent and a basic understanding, of course, on how this application should work. The next 2 parts are for you. There won't be a coding along for that because it's mostly figuring out those things on your own. They're not new topics. They're old topics from previous development courses. It's just adding to it. So now you should be able to work with promises, with fetch, and all those kind of things. Good luck.